My name is Ralph White, and I'm an alcoholic. I want to thank the committee for asking me to come out and share my experience, strength, and hope tonight. I really want to thank my new friend, Shirali, who was so diligent in contacting me, keeping me informed, taking care of me once I got here. My wife and I are very appreciative of the hospitality that's been shown by the committee up to this point and by everybody that's in here. I want to thank you. You come from the place that I come from to get invited to any gathering. That's a blessing right there. And it's a double blessing because you guys had my brother out here last year and inviting me following him, because we're the kind of guys that certainly were not getting invited places and definitely were not getting invited back. So, I want to thank you. And I wasn't going to comment on this, but I got here. Shirali had left me a message. Ralph, don't trip. You are going on tonight. If you look at the program, don't get, and I'm like, this is taking anonymity to new levels, right? But, but it's kind of all right. It's kind of all right because if you guys like what goes on tonight, my name is Ralph White and I'm an alcoholic. And if not, then refer to the program for tonight's speaker. Go back and tell your people, oh, yeah, this is the Thursday night speaker. Show the program. Oh, we just having fun. And before we go any further with this, because it's about, I want to do the most important thing I'm going to do tonight. And after that, I could probably just sit down and rest and the rest of this. We didn't ask for them, but I want to welcome our new friends to Alcoholics Anonymous. I want to let you know if you be the alcoholic of my variety, this is probably the best step you can take from the cradle to the grave. And I don't say that because I'm the speaker at a gathering like this. I don't say that because it's what we say when we get behind podiums at Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't say it because it's the thing to do when you get up in front of a group. I say it because this program, this fellowship, this power you guys have introduced me to has been working in my life like nothing else I had discovered up to this point. And I'm grateful. I've been doing this a couple of 24 hours. I saw we got long timers on the agenda. I've spoken with a number of people already today, and it's people in here that were getting sober when I was in diapers, and I'm like, and that can be, it's intimidating and it's humbling. And at the same time, the temptation is for me to get up in a gathering like this and say, I'm not going to share a long drunkalog. I just want to share about recovery. But I remember being new to the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. I remember being taken to a meeting where a speaker was speaking somewhat like I am tonight, and his hair was combed and his eyes were bright. He was dressed pretty good. He was stringing sentences together real well. I remember sitting out in the audience and thinking to myself, I know this cat has not been where I've been. I know he hasn't felt how I've felt, and I know he hasn't done what I've done. What can this lame tell me? So the person that's standing in front of you tonight finds it very important to let you know that the man that's up here right now is not the same one that stumbled into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous October 11th, 1986. I'm going to share with you in a general way what I used to be like, what happened, and what I'm like today in the hopes that somebody out there will be thinking to themselves like I was thinking to myself, man, I used to do some of the same things. Man, I used to feel just like that. Or more important, I too want to have this thing. A real brief bio. I come up in South Central Los Angeles. That's where I was raised. I was raised in the heart of Watts. I came from a very large family. There were 6 boys in my family. We stayed in a little 2-bedroom apartment. Moms and pops stayed in one room. The 6 boys stayed in 3 bunk beds in the other room. My earliest memory of my old man was he was an alcoholic and I didn't like him. He seemed weak. He was very ineffective. He was not a guy to be proud of. How as a kid, every boy wants to be proud of his dad. That was not happening in my house. And my earliest vow about my father was, I'm not going to be like him. My father wasn't abusive and my father wasn't violent. My father was an absentee drunk. And every other Friday, like clockwork, you could count on him not showing up at the house. It would be a little kid in the neighborhood who would feel it was his duty to come and inform my family how my old man had been performing the previous Friday or Saturday night. And I remember feeling real ashamed and real embarrassed. And those are feelings I'm familiar with from an early age. On Saturday mornings, my mom, I could remember some Saturday mornings, my mom in her room with a broom going up under the bed, and you could hear the Ripple bottles clinking together as she swept them out from under the bed and put them in a big bag and took them outside to the big trash can. My old man got put out when I was 8 or 9 years old. Me and my brothers thought he looked good going, and my mom proceeded to raise 6 boys by herself. Don't know about the rest of you guys, but when I grew up, my idea of an ideal family, my only model for one, and I imagine young folk do it today, my model for what an ideal family life was supposed to be, I took from TV shows that came on at the time. And I'll date myself. The TV shows when I was growing up that showed what an ideal family would be: Ozzie and Harriet, Father Knows Best, Donna Reed, My 3 Sons, Leave It to Beaver, and that was not jumping off in my house. When you grow, you get something that's called perspective, and perspective works like this. You got a mom that raised 6 boys by herself. My mom in those days was on welfare. She hadn't finished high school. I can remember my mom putting herself back through high school, putting herself through college, working 2 jobs, shaking in clothes that she washed and ironed for other folk. And when you're grown, you look back on your life and say, damn, I had a hell of a mom. Look how she sacrificed to raise these 6 boys by herself. But when you're a kid about 9 or 10 years old and you bring in a couple of partners home from school with you on a Wednesday afternoon, and you hit the front door and mom's is in the living room with ironing board up and a rag on her head, you don't feel proud. You feel ashamed and embarrassed. You start bringing partners home from school. You retreat into that fantasy world about what life is really like for you at the house. And if your name is Ralph, you start living in that prison that I've lived in much of my life. It's the biggest prison I've ever lived in. It's a prison I go to sometimes today. And that's the prison of what I think you think about me. See, I don't know what you think about me, but I'm trapped in what I think you think about me. And I'll do whatever it takes to shape and form and mold your opinion around. I'll wine you, I'll dine you, I'll woo you, I'll con you, I'll bully you, I'll manipulate you, I'll buy you. Please like me. Now, I don't particularly have to like you, but please like me. And I always like to toss this out when I get a chance to share before a group, because somebody might be getting confused about what we're doing tonight. Somebody's probably sitting out there thinking to themselves, he may be all right speaking. He's looking around the room, making eye contact with everybody. Don't let that fool you. I'm looking for the person whose attention is drifting, look like you going to sleep. I'm going to work on you. You'll like me before this is over with, right? Trapped in what I think you think about me. And to our new friends, you'll hear a lot of things shared at podiums of Alcoholics Anonymous. Sometimes they go right by me, and sometimes they hit me right where I live. We say, for the shortcut way we put that is listen for the similarities. And one of the common themes in Alcoholics Anonymous from a lot of our members is never feeling like they fit in. And that's not a part of my story. I'm a little guy. I like a lot of attention. I've never been interested in fitting in. I've always wanted to stand out. And as a result of that, I achieved and I accomplished a lot of things growing up. Can't tell you where it comes from except for the fact, and for some of you who were here last year and heard my brother's story, our stories are very similar. We're a year apart. I'm a year older than Ronnie. We were best friends. We grew up. We did practically everything together. And my mom was a very, 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 very large influence in my life. A lot of the things that I did growing up, because I'm not I'm a late bloomer. I didn't do a lot early on. I was scared of my mama. My mother was one that wielded an iron fist. She was a very principled lady. She's an old Southern Baptist sister. She would march her 6 boys up the street to church every Sunday morning. My mother, and I told you guys all the things she did, and somebody might be thinking she's a superwoman. In addition to the jobs that she held and going back to school and the rest, my mother was PTA president every year at our school. And some of the stuff I share is not out of virtue. I was always, every one of you guys had me in your school. I was always class president or student body president. I was a straight A student. I was teacher's pet. I played ball. I made all-stars. And a lot of that stuff wasn't out of virtue on my part. Check this out. I didn't get in a lot of trouble in school. I have one older brother. And this brother, he stayed in trouble, right? And one day, I remember being in class, and a girl came running into my class. Your mama's up at the school today. I'm like, why is my mom up at the school? And she continued with the story. Because my brother used to stay in trouble, and my mom used to say, don't call me after the fact. Next time he's doing something, call me right then. Well, that had happened that day. And I got the rest of the story. Ooh, your mama came up to the school and whooped your brother in front of the whole class. Didn't have to worry about the other 5 of us, I'm not taking one in front of the class, no. I'll turn in my work, I'll do what I'm, no. Not going out like that. So my story, so yeah, it seems like, this guy was all right kid and the rest of it, but, it was a lot of fear in that. And my mother instilled a lot of drive, and the reason I share my story, the first time I read Bill's story, and I might go everywhere tonight, somebody bring me back, we in childhood and the rest of this. But the first time I read Bill's story, I tried to do this program 4 times before I came to stay. And I read Bill's story one time, and I could see no similarities with me and Bill. Bill was an older guy at the time when I first came in. He was a white guy. You could tell I'm not. He was a stockbroker. Check out the way I handle money. You'll know I don't know. Bill had a lot of differences in the rest of that. But then when I read his story, somebody shared with me, Ralph, the way that you read the big book Alcoholics Anonymous and the way that is the same way that you go to meetings and listen to speakers share from the podium. Ask yourself 3 questions when you read the book, and ask yourself 3 questions whenever you listen to a speaker share. Ask yourself, did I drink like he drank? Did I think like he thought? Or did I feel like he felt? And when I ask myself those questions, we call that listening for the similarities. I can find myself in almost every one of your stories, and the big book Alcoholics Anonymous came alive for me in my own experience. And there's a part in the book, and it talks about Bill. I would prove to the world I was important. The drive for success was on, and he had that sense of grandiosity. He imagined himself the head of vast enterprises. And when I was growing up, I identified with all that. Don't know where it came from, except for the fact I had a mind, because I had big goals, big dreams, and big ambitions when I was growing up. I had 2 goals when I was a kid. My first goal was to wear number 30 and play shortstop for the Los Angeles Dodgers. My idol was Maury Wills, and baseball was my game, and I wanted to be a professional baseball player. I'm a little guy. I was all right for my age and the rest, but that wasn't going nowhere. But I had a second, and I had a backup goal, and I used to share it with people all the time, and I meant it with everything in me. And because I was a kid who was an achiever, because I was a kid who was used to doing things, and because I was a kid who got a lot of positive reinforcement from people who knew me, I would share this goal with them, and they pat me on the head and say, you go for it. And that goal was, I'm going to be the first black president in the United States. And people used to pat me on the head and say, you go. Because, I was always student body president. I was always class president. I was always an achiever and a doer and somebody that was doing something. And my brothers, there's me, there's Ron, there's Reggie, and then there's 2 others that were in a different mode. But every single year, one of us would follow the other one. I would be president, then Ronnie, then and we would go through it. And our neighborhood was real proud of the white boys. We come from we were the first guys from our block to go off to college. We had been written up and people were proud of Miss White and her sons. We were the ones you trot out at Sunday school and on Easter, and we'd say the verses and the rest of that. I ain't feeling nothing, but I'm good at memorizing, and I like pats on the back, right? And so we do all that thing, so I'm growing up, and this is how I'm rolling when I'm growing up. I heard a lot of people share that alcohol made them feel different, and alcohol didn't necessarily make me feel different. What it did is made me feel more of. It made me feel more Ralph, better. There was always somebody, because I'm this square guy. I shared with you guys all those things. I was teacher's pet. I was class president. I was smart. If I could have been cool, I would have traded all that in. Because, see, in my neighborhood, it wasn't a lot of currency in being class, teacher's pet, but in being cool, oh, that's the one, Because, check this out. I don't know about the rest of you men sitting in the room, but I always had a problem with this manhood thing. Even as a kid, it seemed like the other guys always had a handle on what it meant to be a boy or a man that I just didn't know. I used to run with a group of dudes, even later in life, and a big part of my story, because the cats who were cool, they had some things I didn't have. They'd be the ones in the bathroom shooting dice, smoking cigarettes. They knew how to cuss real good. My mama didn't allow cussing, so I was an amateur at it. So when I tried it in public, people would look at me because you don't say the words right on my, anyway. And the guys who were cool, they had girls. They knew how to talk to girls. And, man, the girls were a mystery to me. I would roll with boys. Even later in life, I'd be rolling with some guys, man, and we'd go to a club. And I always rolled with certain cats. And one of my boys could always be the one that would go in the corner, and he'd talk to some girls, man, and they'd end up giggling, and I'd be trying to listen. What's he saying? How's he getting that reaction? Because I'm tongue-tied, right? we're going to fast forward with this because somebody rightfully so is thinking, what the hell does this have to do with drinking? Stay with me. I'm shy, I'm introverted, I'm a high achiever, I'm a doer, I'm pretty popular in school. And really, when you get to telling your story sometime, and I get to tell mine from time to time, and sometimes you get lost in it and it feels like, because I grew up in a background that would sound like, God, this guy really had it rough. We didn't have a telephone in my house. We used to use the next door neighbor's phone. The first car that I ever drove in was the one I bought when I graduated from high school. We didn't have a car in my house. There are stories my mom tells now about how we had Christmas and how we had holidays that I never knew it. I never knew we struggled. I never knew the church donated. I never knew that kind of thing. Because for me, growing up in the family I grew up, I wouldn't have traded it for anything in the world. I had 5 brothers. I was never lonely. We played board games. We made up games. I had a mom who showered us with love and with motivation and with stuff. And like I said, my brothers and I always were used to getting pats on the back. And I love my childhood, and so I can't say, and sometimes when I get lost in my story, it sounds different to me than when I lived it, and I don't know where I'm going with that, but that all just came with me right now. I like growing up, but I'm not and as you can tell, I'm still not drinking. I'm 16 years old now, and I'm in high school, shy, introverted, and I got a girlfriend. Now, Ralph with a girlfriend at 16 does not mean the same thing it might mean for the rest of you men. Ralph with a girlfriend at 16 means this. I ran with a group of dudes that went with the same group of girls. One of my boys broke up with this girl. I waited a suitable amount of time to pass, and I told my other boy I want to go with her. He went and asked her. He came back and told me. She said yes. Now I have a girlfriend, right? I don't know what to do with her because Ralph don't do girls. I don't have conversation, right? Check this out, and this is just a snapshot of how I was at 16 years old, and this is my official girlfriend. I had other girlfriends before, but none of them knew it. This one, was officially my girlfriend. She claimed me. If you went up to her and asked her, who do you go with? She'd say, Ralph, for the record, or in public, right? And I would call this girl on those old rotary phones back in those days. And when that 7th number would come back around, terror would set in. Because I knew what would have to happen when she answered the phone. You got to talk. It's the telephone, right? And I didn't have no conversation. And on my official girlfriend who claimed me, I just hang up on her, man. Click, So you get an idea of the way this relationship went. I used to carry her books home from school every now and then, maybe go to the show on a weekend, and we might do some kissing. And that was the extent. Went to a drive-in movie this particular night, 16, me and my girlfriend. On a double date with an older partner of mine. He's driving. He got his girl in the front seat. My girl and me are in the back seat. Plastic cup of rum and coke comes to the back seat this particular night. Ralph drinks that rum down real warm, seemed like it rushes back to the top of my brain, and all of a sudden, Ralph's hands started doing things they had never done. Mouth started saying things it had never said. I had arrived. Alcohol did for me what I couldn't do for myself. Gave me the courage to do and to be and to say things I wouldn't do, be, and say without it. And I liked it. I liked it a lot. The big book, Alcoholics Anonymous, starts talking about me in a lot of places, and it starts at the front of the book. Doctor's Opinion has a line in there that goes something like this. Men and women like Ralph drink essentially for the effect produced by alcohol. I recognized that line the first time I read it. Now, if you caught me out drinking later on in life at the happy hours, and you might catch me with some daiquiris, some Long Island, Ralph, why you drink so much? Oh, I like the taste of this, But if I was drinking for taste, I could have stuck with Minute Maid fruit punch. I like the taste of that. I like what alcohol did for me. I'm not overnight alcoholic. My drinking that night, I didn't get drunk. I got a nice tipsy feeling. I like what it did for me. I got some kisses that I hadn't gotten before. My hands roamed in places they hadn't roamed before. And I like what alcohol did. My drinking stayed that way for a time. I understand when we talk about this disease being progressive in nature, because that's how it showed up in my experience. My drinking stayed just to go out to parties on the weekends. And this is the late 60s. I graduated from high school in 1971, and I graduated to college and higher education in every sense of the word. In 1971, my drinking was still just on weekends to go to parties. But by the end of 1971, my drinking had crept up to during the day and on the weekends to get ready for the parties. By 1972, my drinking is now not only on the weekends, but it's after class on the weekdays. By the end of 72, I'm drinking, and now I've added non-addictive marijuana to it. By 1973, I'm drinking, I'm smoking, I'm doing other drugs, I'm doing it on a daily basis, and you couldn't have told me it was anything wrong with the way that I was living. The big book Alcoholics Anonymous talks about at a certain point in my drinking career, I won't be able to tell the true from the false. And the way that worked for me was this. Isn't the way I'm doing it? Isn't that the way everybody does it? Why would you be young, with a bright future, with a little bit of money? I was getting financial aid. Didn't chasing women and getting low to come with the territory? In those days, man, if you came over my house and I couldn't offer you something to drink or something to smoke, I wasn't being a good host. And if I went over your house and you didn't do the same for me, not only weren't you being a good host, wasn't coming over your house no more. No disrespect to any of our young members in here, but I'm glad that I came up at the time that I came up. I am so glad that I grew up in the era that I grew up in. You know, because in 2004, man, don't life seem like it's kind of hectic and crazy? You got sexually transmitted diseases. You got to worry about safe sex. You got to worry about it's all kind of stuff that's out there in life. Man, in those days, I don't know if it was simpler, but it just seemed like a simpler time. In those days, if I went to a club, I would have a one-question interview for a girl. You get high? If not, next, I'm moving. I don't need to know your name, your sign. Do you have a job? Let's get to the basis of this relationship. Do you drink the way I do? You know, that's it. That's all, you know. And graduated from college in 76, and I started working as a counselor for LA City Schools. And things really started taking off for Ralph. I started making some money on my own. I had the kind of thing, I was making the kind of money and doing the kind of things that should have allowed me to start acquiring what normal people acquire. I never did that. Snapshot of Ralph's life. This is when alcohol was working. I'd buy a car. I'd make exactly 3 car payments. I did this 3 times. And then come find it. And they find it, take it away. First time I had a car repossessed, I had the nerve to call the police and report it. So didn't know. I'm calling the police. Somebody came and ain't made a payment in 8 months. You know, somebody came. I wasn't hip to hiding. And then the next 2 I was hiding around. And they'd eventually find. You know, kind of brother that never had a problem balancing a bank book. Payday, I got money. 2 days later, broke. 0. No problem balancing my bank book. Stayed in the crib from 1976 to 1979 without paying rent. A couple of baffling features about the disease that I suffer from, and one of them is this. I can't see what alcohol is doing to me until I'm free of it. I can't see what it's doing to me when I'm in the mix. So some things that are very clear to me looking in the rearview mirror of experience were not at all clear to me when it was happening. One fact stands out real clear to me about the days when I thought alcohol was working. I used to go to work for 2 weeks to live for 2 days. I said, that's all. I worked, I got paid, I partied. That's it. Can't tell you the moment, can't tell you the hour, can't tell you where I was or what I was doing when alcohol ceased to be a luxury and became a necessity for me. Bill's description of the invisible line. I can tell you that it did happen. And the cold thing about the invisible line, you know what I don't like about it? It's invisible. There is no warning. If you take this next one, matter of fact, by the time you realize you across the line, you way over here. The line, what? At least that was the case for me. You know, I'd see people, I'd see people like your buddies like mine. I'd see you going down. I'd be like, if I ever get like him, I'll quit. You know, see people like this. If I get like you need to quit, right? Anybody else play the regret game at Alcoholics Anonymous that goes something like this? If I only knew then what I know now, I never would have took that. Yeah, right. You know, it reminds me about this story I like to tell about a little boy named Johnny. You know, and since we already had one person, I'm going to tell my story. You know, and Johnny had a habit his father used to frown on. Johnny used to like to play with himself. Father goes off to work this particular day, comes home early, Little Johnny's bedroom door is closed. Father opens the door without knocking. Sure enough, little Johnny's in the bedroom masturbating. Father looks at him and says, son, I thought I told you if you keep doing that, you'll go blind. Little Johnny stops and looks up at his dad and says, well, Daddy, can I just do it till I need glasses? You know. And that story kind of reminds me of me in the life. I'd see you going down, I'm just going to do you right, you know. Book talks about seeking the Lord companion. It wasn't long before I became the Lord companion. You know, I went on from that job. I got fired from my first job as a counselor for LA City Schools. You know, things started happening to me that I was not connecting with my drinking. You know, the second job I got fired from, it wasn't until I did inventory that I realized, and I meant this for real, that the reason for me getting fired was not Thursday paydays. Because I just knew, why would anybody pay somebody on Thursday? I could get to work if I hadn't got paid yet, but I could not make it to work Friday after Thursday payday. And I seriously did not understand what employer would do something like that to a person. You know. We don't have time for me to share everything. And I used to say the highlights of what should have been hints that I was having a problem with this thing, but now I call them the lowlights. I got married in 1980 on a Saturday afternoon at 1 o'clock. I had a bachelor party the night before my wedding. None of the rest of the guys at this bachelor party are getting married the next day, and all the rest of them have sense enough to go home 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm still at my bachelor party till 7:30 in the morning. Me and my brothers, right? 4 of us made it to the program. You know, they take me home at 7:30. They pour me in the bed. I lay on the bed until they get me up at 10 o'clock for my 1 o'clock wedding, right? And I just laid on the bed. You know why I still like coming to meetings, Alcoholics Anonymous, even 17 and a half years later? Because I can go to a meeting and just say something. You know, I don't even have to go into a long explanation. Folk in here been like, yeah, been there, done that. You know, because I'm in the bed. I'm toe up, right? That's all I got. I'm toe up. I'm laying on top of the bed, right? Just on top of the bed. Didn't sleep that night. Just stomach roil and head, you know. Yeah, you know. And so I'm laying on top of the bed. They get me up at 10 o'clock for my 1 o'clock wedding. I show up at the wedding. I'm supposed to say my own vows at this wedding, right? My then wife-to-be is standing in there when I wobbled up in there, you know, looking not like somebody who's getting married that day. I come up in there wobbling. She took one look at me and she looked at the preacher. She said, scratch the own vows. Say the regular on him, right? Now my lines are cut to 2 words, right? So it gets to me, I get ready to say, and threw up all over the altar. Passed out. Have not taken a wedding picture to this day. See, and a lot of people, you know what we do in Alcoholics Anonymous, especially when you speak, and we out-bottom each other, so we get the embellishing stories and the rest of that. And I'm glad my brother's here, because he can tell you. They had to tell me about the reception. You know, I have vague memories, and this is a cold thing. You know, I tell the story, it's good for laughs and the rest, and every now and then I go back to that day and to that ex-wife of mine. And sometimes, you know, I have to stand up and feel it and not just go through it as a story. Because most women in here know, you know, if there's one day in this world, because we're in the world and we're just people and we go through life and none of us get to be the divas and the stars and the Janet Jackson. But for one day, and most women's like, I'm the star. She's the star. Queen for a day. Wedding day. All eyes on me. Everybody come see the guy. You know, all the people who haven't met him yet on this side, and we had a very large wedding. And you know, most of you who've been married, you're introducing the husband to your people you work with and to the other people in the family. You know, and I have vague memories of being in this room, and Mary, she soon gave up on it, but a couple of times she'd come in, oh, there's Ralph. Thank God we have an amends process. But, you know, so I go through that, you know, and pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. To our new friends, if you're anything like me, when I first came to the program, there were a lot of words that you guys used in here. I was familiar with the words, but I wasn't familiar with the way you guys used them. Because the way you guys use some of them were not the way I use them in my everyday walk-around vocabulary. I needed some help from some of the old-timers with some of that stuff like the phenomena of craving and the allergy of the body and the psychic change. But the first time I heard pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization, I need no help with that one. Folk like us don't need a dictionary for pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. I lived pitiful, incomprehensible demoralization up close and personal, and I lived it over and over and over and over and over again. Because I got to let you know that wedding day was the high point of that marriage. Went downhill after that. Because I'm the kind of father and I'm the kind of husband. Remember sitting on my living room couch. My wife coming out the bathroom real fast, pulling her pants up, going to the dining room table, picking her purse up off the table and clutching it real close to her as she went back to the bathroom. And I feel this tall because nobody was in the house but me and her, but it got like that in my house. I'm the kind of father and I'm the kind of husband. Remember coming to the door and sticking my key in the door, opening the door, and my wife and 2-year-old daughter was sitting right here crying. And I looked over here, and the guy sitting in my chair with a gun pointed at my stomach saying, I want my money right now. We talked to the men for just a minute. Don't know about the rest of you guys. But I had a lot of fears, and I had a lot of doubts about, do I have what it takes to be a husband? Do I have what it takes to be a father? Because if you're in the life, your track record already gives you your answer, right? Because what's the husband's role and what's the father's role? To protect and to provide. And it's a cold-blooded feeling, fellas, laying in bed with a woman night after night after night after night, knowing not only aren't you protecting, knowing not only aren't you providing, you're the one bringing the wolf to the door. Because my house got broke into 4 times. 4 times I pretended to call 77th Division. 4 times I knew I was playing a game with myself because I knew what had happened because they told me, you're going to give us our money or we coming up in there and getting it. I'm the kind of father and I'm the kind of husband, remember sitting on my back porch. 2-year-old daughter coming outside pulling in my coat. Daddy, daddy, that's my piggy bank. I remember stopping and giving her a little grin, talking about, don't worry, baby, daddy's going to put some dollar bills in here for this change. And I wasn't raised to be stealing from my daughter, and I wasn't raised to be stealing from my wife. I was an alcoholic with no tools of recovery, and I did what it took to get what I needed to get. I've shared with you guys that my disease is progressive in nature, and in my experience, it's progressive in a couple of areas. I share one area already. It takes more than it used to take in order for me to get the same effect. But my disease is progressive in another area. My behavior. My behavior gets progressively worse. I'm willing to do more readily than I used to be willing to do in order to chase this. I remember the first time I went in my wife's purse, I thought long and hard about it. I don't care what any of you guys say. You can't convince me. When I took that money, I wasn't stealing. I wasn't. I took that $40 out the purse, and I meant it when I said, I'm going to replace this money before she knows it's missing, because I don't steal. And I really don't steal from my family. You know how when you drink and the line keep changing for you, you have these lines, these principles, these things that you will not do? First it's I don't steal. Then it's, well, I don't steal from my family. Well, I really wouldn't steal from my daughter. And the line keeps moving. But that first time I went in my wife's purse and I took that $40, man, and I deliberated a long time. I looked at it. I thought about it. You know, situations that arise out of the phenomenon of craving. I had been out doing what it is that I do, been out drinking. Spent up all my money, came in, and I looked at this purse and I looked at this money, and I told myself I'll replace it before she knows it's missing. Took the $40 out, went and spent it up, came back looking for some more money. She had moved the purse. I couldn't believe I had taken the money. I didn't look for the purse that hard. 2 days later, the same scenario presented itself. Remember, I'm going to replace this money before she knows it's missing. I got paid again. Same scenario presented itself. I'm out doing what I do. And I came back in looking for the purse this time, and the idea of replacing the money. The book talks about the reason we don't know about. The alcoholic will be unable to recall with sufficient force pain, suffering, humiliation, or weeks or even days ago. And that thought to replace the money didn't even come to mind. In fact, it was replaced by another thought. Last time I took $40, came back looking for the purse when I spent it up and couldn't find it. This time, bright idea, I'll take all the money out of the purse, and that I don't spend, I'll sneak it back in the purse, right? And I didn't deliberate so hard before I went in my wife's purse, and I was off and running to hit my wife's purse on a regular basis. She'd go to sleep with it up under the pillow. I could remember some of those nights, man, when that feeling is on me and I'm already out in that phenomenon of craving. And I'm laying in the bed and she's laying in the bed. And what would generally happen, I'd wait for her and I'd let that real regular breathing set in. And I'd let it set in for a while. And I crawl out my side of the bed and I go to her side of the bed. And I go to her pillow and I come under it and I come out real slow. Put the purse in front of me, creep out the bedroom, ease out the front door, jump in my Volkswagen, coast out the driveway, I'm gone. It's Wednesday, I might come back on Monday. Did that one too many Wednesdays, came back one Monday, saw a note on the screen door, the rest of your stuff is at your mama's house. Suitcases on the porch, I'm put out my house, I'm now my daddy. And I go to stay at my mom's house. This is early 80s. Over the course of the next year, each one of my 5 brothers is either put out, evicted, or made their way out of their respective homes. And we all ended up back at my mom's house. Told you we did everything together. So you've got these 6 grown men in my mother's house. Got to a point where none of us were working. All in the grips of this disease. There were days when the 6 of us would sit around looking at each other, man, and between the 6 of us, we couldn't come up with $5 between us. My mother would bring a bag of groceries home from work every single day. Because if she didn't, these 6 grown leeches that she gave birth to would have cleaned her refrigerator out. The highlight of my day at that time, 6:30 in the morning on weekdays, when my mom, the van pool, would come and pick her up to go to work. We had fixed the bars on one of her windows. And we would climb, one of us would climb through that window, 6:30 in the morning, and open the door for the rest of us. Because my mom by now had changed locks, did everything she could. And from 6:30 to 4:30, we'd have a place to stay. And we'd have a safe haven, and we'd do what we did. About 4:15, we'd all jet out. And we damn near killed my mom. At this particular time, when I first went over to my mom's house to stay, my ex-wife thought it was something salvageable about this piece of man that she married. And she used to bring my daughter over to my mother's house so we could keep a father-daughter relationship. And I wanted to be a father to my daughter with everything in me. I really, really, really did. I wanted to take my girl to Disneyland and Magic Mountain. I wanted to take her to a movie on a Saturday afternoon. I wanted to walk up the street with her little hand and my big hand and just take her to the store and buy her ice cream. I wanted to tuck her in bed at night and give her a good night kiss. I wanted to sit her in my lap and read stories to her. I wanted to get the look from my little girl that I've seen men in this fellowship get since I've been here. The look like, this is my daddy and this is my hero. And the best I could do on those Saturday afternoons was 30 minutes. 30 minutes. I tell my mom I'm going around the corner to the store to get Rain some ice cream. And I would disappear. It would be Saturday and I would come back on Monday. I'd sneak back on Sunday night when her mom was picking her up. And I'd be peeking around the side of my mom's house with tears streaming down my face, man. Looking at those headlights and those two heads in that car backing out the driveway, thinking to myself, there go my life backing out this driveway. Heard a lot of people share that they were scared of dying out there. That's not a part of my story. I was never scared of dying. I was scared I was going to keep waking up to the same old thing. Monday the same as Tuesday, the same as Sunday, the same as Christmas. Over and over and over again. And I'm so glad God don't make misery comfortable. And on October the 11th, 1986, I got miserable enough and I got tired enough that I was directed to my 4th program of recovery. I went to the Harbor Life Center on Skid Row in downtown Los Angeles. My brother Ron was already in there. It's amazing the way God works. Absolutely amazing. Because I ended up in the Harbor Life Center on what I thought was another scheme. I had done some things, and on this particular Friday night, the end result was a guy was looking for me. I knocked on my mom's door that Saturday morning and said, Mom, if you just let me in the house. I don't know why. I had been in worse situations. I had sucked on this same guy's pistol before. I've been in worse situations. I was tired this morning. And I knocked on my mom's door. And I had this, and straight lie. I just didn't feel like running from it. And I said, Mom, if you let me in the house today. It was a Saturday morning, about 7:30. Ronnie's in his program, and he's arranged for them to let me in. Hadn't talked to Ronnie, didn't know nothing. But I had to seal the deal. Because my mom by now is like, psh, I'm through. So we called up to the Harbor Life Center. And Ronnie got on the phone, and I'm on the other line. I'm like, yeah, Ronnie, tell Mom I'm going to be up there. And he's like, you want a bed? I'm like, yeah, tell her. And he's like, yeah, we'll get you a bed. Come on, and you know. And so on his side of the conversation, he's like, yeah, I'll get you. And, you know, and on my side, see, Mom? And he, you know, and the miracle, that wasn't the miracle. That's Ralph Lyon. Do that all the time. You know, the miracle was on Monday morning when my older brother came by to take me, I went. And I went to the Harbor Life Center on Skid Row in downtown Los Angeles, my 4th program. And on October the 13th in 1986, they took me to a meeting with Alcoholics Anonymous. And a guy was standing up in front of the group somewhat like I've been standing up in front of the group tonight. And I remember at that first meeting, I was full of guilt. I was full of shame. I was full of remorse. I was full of, I'll never be able to forgive myself for the things I had done and what I had become. I only share with you guys the tip of the iceberg. I didn't share with you when I got put out of my house and went to stay at my mom's house. I started stealing out my mom's purse. Didn't share with you when I got put out of my house and went to stay at my mom's house. A check came to one of my little brothers in the name of R. White. All of us are R. White. Took that. Didn't share with you when my grandmother gave me $200 to buy her plane ticket to the family reunion. If it wasn't for my mom, she never would have saw Atlanta, Georgia. Didn't share with you the first time I tried to get sober. My ex-wife got me a job at her radio station, stole $1,600 from them, ruined her reputation in that industry. Didn't share with you a lot. Suffice it to say I had a lot on my tip when I came. And I was full. I'll never be able to forgive myself for the things I'd done. Speaker was standing up in front of the group somewhat like I am tonight. And he was sharing about taking from the family. And he was sharing about taking from the job. And I remember looking at him that night and thinking to myself, yeah, you sharing about doing scandalous things, but you look scandalous. You should have been doing that shit. I'm different. Y'all ain't gonna hear my business. And the speaker seemed like he knew I was in the room because he dropped something on me like this. He said, if you're sitting in this room right now, you are not responsible for your disease, but you are responsible for your recovery. And you have just now tapped into a source of power much greater than yourself. And you don't have to drink and you don't have to use no matter what, provided you are willing to fulfill some conditions. And he caught my attention. He went on to say, this is the only club you can be a member of where the worse off you are when you get here, the better off your chances of staying. And I got the message of hope at that first meeting, Alcoholics Anonymous, I went to. He described to me what I suffer from, that it's something physically different about me than other folk. And he did it in a curious way. For the very first time, a guy was hitting me where I live, and for the first time, he wasn't pointing his finger. You need to do this. Boy, look at that girl you have. With a wife like that, you would want to straighten up. If you come up around here like that, he wasn't talking to me like that. He was talking to me, talking about himself. He was speaking in the first person, and I was feeling him. I was feeling him. Seemed like he said, Ralph, don't take my word for it. Diagnose yourself. Ask yourself, how many times did you say, I'm just going to spend 20? What happened? Whole paycheck. How many times did you say, I'm just going to stop off at happy hour? What happened? Whole paycheck. How many times did you say, I'm just going to make a quick run over here to my boy's house? What happened? Ralph, did it happen once? Did it happen twice? If your name is Ralph, every 2 weeks from 79 to 85, without fail, my experience shows me when I take one of anything, no matter what I have to do, where I have to go, who I have to see, no matter how great the wish or the necessity, my body takes over and I have to have another. Ralph, smart guy, how do you explain stone sober? My car seemed to drive to the LIQ on payday. Second part of this disease. The mental obsession is somehow, some way, I'll be able to control and enjoy this magic potion I discovered. And that's a cold obsession if you're a guy like Ralph. Because it's based on a lie in and of itself. Control and enjoy. Anytime I was controlling, I wasn't enjoying. And anytime I was enjoying, I damn sure wasn't controlling. Why am I obsessed with control and enjoy? I can't drink because of my body. I can't stop because my mind refuses to accept that fact. I'm powerless. Third part of this disease, spiritual malady. 12 and 12 calls it a soul sickness. And in the big book, Alcoholics Anonymous, it says, Ralph, if you work on the spiritual, the mental and the physical are straightened out. And that's what this program is really about. And that's what I'm so grateful to learn. You know, if you're sitting in this room right now and you think this program is just about not drinking and just about not using, you're shortchanging the program, you're shortchanging yourself. I'm not knocking physical sobriety. If you just don't drink and you just don't use, you might make it home with a whole paycheck. If you just don't drink and you just don't use, you might make it to work on Sunday morning. If you just don't drink and you just don't use, you might stop going to jail on the weekend. But what this program has to offer is a whole lot more than that. I hear a lot of people come up and share, and if you're looking for the speaker whose story is the one of fear and it's going to scare you, if you go back out there, it's still killing people. And if you go back, I share with you guys that I'm the kind of person, I did everything. I drank, I used, I did everything. And sometimes at the height of my glory, people would look at me and say to me, Ralph, you scared of overdosing the way you? I'd be like, overdose? I'm scared of the deadly underdose. You better give me some more, So the message that a whole alcoholic of my variety has got to have depth and it's got to have weight. And the message that I bring to you guys tonight that's got the most depth and weight is that you're looking at a guy who at 33 years old had given up on life. You're looking at a guy who at 33 years old had not answered anybody's 8 or 9 o'clock wake-up call to go to work in a long time and never thought he'd be capable of doing it again. You're looking at a guy who at 33 years old didn't know where his family was living, didn't know where my little girl was enrolled in school. You're looking at a guy who's a graduate of a major university in this country, and my job at the end of my drinking was taking the trash out for a 21-year-old. I was sleeping in the back of my mother's garage. I was eating lemons off a neighbor's lemon tree for breakfast. And I stumbled into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, and you met me just like I was. You didn't ask me for anything. You didn't ask me to accept anything. You met me at the door just like I was. And you said something I found very curious. You said, let us love you till you can love yourself. I didn't believe you. I stink. If you turn your back on me, I'm liable to go up in your purse. How you going to tell me you will love me? And that was before I knew what takes place in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. That was before I knew what happens when the God in you reaches out to the God in me. That was before I knew that in Alcoholics Anonymous we specialize in loving unlovable people. And you nursed me, and you loved me back to health. You gave me a way out upon which we can all agree. You told me what the problem was. Step one. And I did the work on step one when I was out there. I don't have to come in here and decide I'm going to be powerless over alcohol. Alcohol decided that for me. Thank you very much. Old timers at my whole group said, we want you when alcohol is through with you. Step one is a conclusion I draw based on my experience. And I came in here and I listened to people share their experiences with me. And you, and you, and you, and you, and you, and you all told me alcohol did its job on you, had its way with you, and you didn't come back from it. And it snuffed out the last flicker of hope that I could do this thing by myself. Step one is the problem, and it's a conclusion I draw based on my experience. Step two is also a conclusion I draw based on my experience, and it's the solution. Came to believe that a power greater than me could restore me to sanity. I tried to stop for myself. My mama tried to stop me. The job tried to stop me. Police tried to stop me. Court said, if you couldn't stop me, I couldn't stop me. If it ain't a power bigger than me that could stop me, I'm in big trouble. I took step two out of desperation, and I took step two out of what do I have to lose. Step three made a decision to turn my will, which is my thinking, and my life, which is my actions, over to the care of God as I understood him. I said to my sponsor when I got to that point, God, as I understand him, I don't understand him. How can I take that step? He said, it ain't but two things you need to go about God in order to start. Number one, he is. Number two, he ain't you. And from that beginning, all sorts of remarkable things have happened in my life. You know what? Because I'm a guy that talks a lot about the steps. I'm a guy who talks a lot about the process of recovery that's outlined in the big book, Alcoholics Anonymous. And more than talking about, because somebody in here is getting confused. Somebody might be thinking to themselves, this guy might be working an all right program, listening to the way he shares. And somebody else is on the opposite end and thinking to themselves, I'll never be able to get up in front of people and share. Can I have this thing? The ability to talk about the program ain't got a lot to do with the ability to live it. This is a living program. It's within the reach, it's within the grasp of anybody sitting in this room right now. And that's what I like the most about this power you guys introduced me to. He ain't tired and he don't discriminate. What he's done for so many people in the room, he's still in the business of doing it. I was driving the other day, and I don't know where I'm getting ready to go. I was driving day before yesterday morning. And I was thinking of coming out here. And I was listening to the radio. And they had a contest going. Father's Day is Sunday. And they were giving away 2 tickets to a concert to the father whose kids wrote a letter into the station about why he was deserving of winning these tickets. And they were reading this letter from these 3 little girls. And they had the father on the phone. And they called him and they said, ask him his name. And your daughters wrote this letter. And they were reading the letter to him. And I listened to the whole letter. I'm a guy that didn't look in the mirror, literally. I went years without looking in the mirror. I took glances because I couldn't believe what I had become. I'm a guy who couldn't listen to a letter to a real dad, because it'll take me to a place I couldn't go. Guilt, shame, remorse. Why him and not me? And I listened to this whole letter. and I'm in the car. You guys know, every now and then, grace comes and sits beside you. Every now and then, you're just driving along, and you get a reminder of where you come from. And I'm crying and I'm shaking in the car. Because in my head, my little girls could write a letter about me. And my 9-year-old actually does. From where I come from. From where I come from. I got married on this program 11 years ago. It's a lady sitting right there that found me worthy. Me. I come from walking the streets at night at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning with nowhere to go. Found me worthy. We got all the way down the aisle. I got the I do out. I even have pictures to prove it this time. I got a 9-year-old daughter at home. She's staying with one of my sponsees this weekend while we're here. She's never seen her daddy loaded on one day at a time. She never will. That 2-year-old daughter whose piggy bank I was going in, she's 21 years old now. She's a junior at UCLA. Me and my 2 girls rolled yesterday morning. Rain was going to Sacramento to see her mom, my ex-wife. Tell you about grace. See, I've been doing this thing and I've been on this road a couple of days. And every now and then I take it for granted. I call it the tyranny of the blessings. My blessings become my burdens. Anybody else like that? All the things I think I wanted, all of a sudden that's what I'm bitching, moaning, and complaining about. If you don't want no problems, don't have no things. Huh? Because life recovery is just that, man. I'm one of these people. I'm not thinking that this is a veil of tears. I love when Bill writes that in the big book. Hey, this ain't no veil of tears. We are not a glum lot. I don't find anything particularly redeeming in suffering and sack. No. I like nice things, so take your ass to work. You want to do some things, go to work. I aspire. I'm one of these people. I am ambitious. I want to be better than what I am. I want to leave. I want to be different than what I am. I'm one of those kind of people. And I surround myself with those kinds of people. And on this road, man, every now and then we hit bumps. And sometimes it feels to me, that the way that God blesses me, if your name is Ralph, those are the things that'll separate me from the power. Because all of a sudden I get so concerned with maintaining the blessings, I forget to maintain the relationship with the one that gave them to me. And I get to tripping. How am I going to pay this bill? Because too many envelopes coming. How am I going to keep this one? Ralph, keep your eye on the power. And every now and then I got to be the message that I carry, as my response used to remind me of. Brother, sometimes you got to be the message that you carry. If the message you carry is that God can handle anything, guess what? Sometimes you got to have something for him to handle. Somebody in here just got something for him to handle. Every single year I get down on my knees with a group of people and we say something that a lot of you guys have said. God, I offer myself to you to build with me and do with me as you will. Imagine that. A piece of man like me, and God will do something with me. I'm not impressed with being around here 17 and a half years, but I am impressed with the power of a loving God if you give him just a little bit of material to work with. And I get down there on my knees and I say that. I offer myself to you to build with me and take away my difficulties. The victory over them may bear witness to those I would help, but thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. Man, I do that with. Take away my difficulties. Don't make me avoid them. Don't make me avoid them. Let me walk through something so somebody else can know like they know. Even if you get fired from a job, you ain't got a drink. Somebody in here needs to know like they know. Even if you lose your mama, you ain't got a drink. Somebody in here. And the way that we know that is it happens for people up in here. And I get armed with something that only we have and only we can do for each other. I get armed with my greatest asset. I get armed with experience to share with another alcoholic. Now, having experience is fine. It's just getting experience that hurts so much. Somebody in here is just getting experience. Don't trip. You know, and I get armed with that. Imagine that. And God gets to make use of a guy like me, a piece of somebody like me. You want to know what this program is really about? This program is really about obtaining and maintaining access to a source of power that does for me what I can't do for myself. What this program is really about is about obtaining and maintaining access to a source of power that can do anything but fail. What this program is really about, put a face on the program. Don't just use words and you know, the program jargon, the work, the process, the steps. But what the hell is the program with a face? Take a look around this room if you want to know what it's really about. What this program is really about is about taking people like us, drunks and convicts and con artists and boosters and hustlers and child abusers, wife abusers, failures as parents, failures as kids, broken down pieces of men and women who don't have dreams and goals and hopes anymore. And it takes people like us and sticks us together in one room, and I stick one hand in your hand and the other hand in God's hand, and we pick up our beds and we walk out of these rooms as mothers, fathers, sons, daughters, sisters, brothers, employers, employees, role models in our community. This program is about growth. This program is about change. If it's going to be any changes made in my life, it begins and it ends with me. You know, I'm a person that has always wanted to leave my mark on the world. I'm a person that has always wanted to do something important. My grandmother used to say, God writes straight with crooked lines. I didn't understand it. I didn't know that we were empowered to do some things. Can't nobody else do it. If God talked directly to me, I'd have been scared to death. Ralph, come. Oh, I'm hearing flashback. I got to hear it from a drunk. I got to hear from, we the only people can do what it is. Imagine the gift that we have. Every time I go to a meeting, I get to participate in some little boy or some little girl getting ready to have a mama come back in the house. Imagine that. Every time I go to a meeting, every time you go to a meeting, we get to participate in some husband or some wife getting ready to have a hell of a spouse come back to the house. Imagine that. Every time we go to a meeting, get to participate, some family getting ready to be put back together. Every time I go to a meeting, who wouldn't want to be part of a fellowship like that? Share with you that we almost killed my mama. I remember one day in 1987, my mother walking out her bedroom. And she went into her living room and she was dressed for church. It was Sunday morning. And her living room was full of drunks. And my mother in her Sunday gear, dressed, going to church. She took one look at these drunks sitting in her living room. And with tears in her eyes, she said, I want to thank you for my sons. Because these drunks were sitting around her table and they had these blue books open. And my brother and I brought 8 alcoholics together in my mom's house, and we had a meeting where we had our first meeting of what later became known as the Never Too Early Big Book Workshop. And they'll be meeting on Sunday. We've been meeting consecutively every year since 1987. And we started with 8 people around my mother's dining room table. When we opened up this last, we opened up a few months ago, and we had about 300 people. Hungry for this thing that we do. When it was like this in the room, my sponsor used to say, shh, you hear that? He'd say, that's God. And there's a spirit that's among us. My brother and I, just 2 guys who made my mom proud, damn near killed her, and now members of a fellowship. And as I sat in my car that other day and I was crying and I was shaking and I was thinking from whence I came, I couldn't help but think that my story is the story of most of us sitting in this room right now. I am so grateful to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. I am so grateful that the old-timers in this room, the people in this room, kept the light on for a drunk like me. I want to thank you. I want to thank you for putting up with me. I want to thank you for tolerating me over these years. I want to thank you for growing me up. I want to thank you for loving me. I want to thank you for giving me a life. I'm not one of the alcoholics who will say, I don't know why I'm sober. I know exactly why I'm sober. I get a blessing so that I can be a blessing. Recovery for me is a gift from God. What I do with my recovery, that's my gift to God. My name is Ralph White. I am an alcoholic.
We hope you've enjoyed this recording. To obtain additional copies, receive a free catalog of AA and Al-Anon talks, or to find out about our tape and CD of the Month Club, call Encore Audio Archives at 1-800-878-1308 or visit our website at www.12steptapes.com.